join in the salute to our nation's flag. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A roll call and declarations of conflicts of interest.
Councilmember Abram.
Hearing none.
Councilmember Bixel.
Here on none.
Vice Mayor Moniz.
Hearing none.
Councilmember Phillips.
Hearing none.
Mayor Bublak.
Hearing none. All right, approval of agenda is posted or amended.
So moved.
I have
Second.
a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Abram.
Yes.
Councilmember Bixel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moniz.
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips.
Yes.
Mayor Bublak.
Yes, passes 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to an adoptable, adorable pet. Here we go. Puppy's coming. Look at that. You got the squeaky toy or something, Chief?
Good evening. So with me tonight, I have a 1.5-year-old purebred American chocolate lab. We named him Chip. I know it's super original, chocolate chip. He's a really good boy. He's food motivated, highly trainable. He is dog friendly. We haven't tested him with our office kitty yet, but I'm sure he would do well. Highly trainable, easy to go in any direction. So he is available for adoption. I'm, kind of hearing there might be some takers around here, so I'm hoping to see you guys at the shelter.
Awesome. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Hold him back. Hold him back.
Mr. Petrolakis, is it yours? Final answer. All right.
Confer with the powers that be.
Chip Petrolakis. Love it. All right. Next, we have a proclamation. Do we have anybody retired? Where's Sarah?
There she is.
Sarah, come on. I'm trying to have a party here. Woo! That's not your dog. It's Mr. Petrolakis'. Yep. Your picture after.
Absolutely.
Are you taking notes, Sarah?
No.
Mayor, members of the City Council, it's my great honor to read a proclamation on behalf of Sarah Eddy, who served 36 years of faithful service to the City of Turlock. We had a nice reception for her tonight, but I have to tell you, I miss her each and every day. In honor of the retirement of Deputy City Manager Sarah Eddy, January 28, 2025. Whereas Deputy City Manager Sarah Eddy
Regan, can you get in that microphone, please?
Technician for the City of Turlock.
Thank you.
Thank you. Whereas during her 36 years of dedicated service to the City of Turlock, Deputy City Manager Sarah Eddy was instrumental in the City of Turlock's Human Resources Department, shaping the city's workforce and policies. Sarah successfully developed and implemented progressive HR strategies, fostered a culture of professionalism and collaboration, and navigated complex labor negotiations to maintain productive relationships with employee groups. Sarah's work ensued compliance with evolving regulations and created initiatives that changed employee engagement, training, and retention. And whereas transitioning to the city manager's office as a deputy city manager, Sarah continued to excel in driving key, my glasses aren't working, initiatives to improve city operations, facilitating interdepartmental collaboration, and managed high priority progress that advanced the city's goals. Sarah's leadership has left a lasting legacy of growth, innovation, and service of excellence in the city of Turlock. And whereas in total, as Deputy City Manager, Sarah Eddy honorably served the city of Turlock and its citizens for 36 years and consistently disseminated outstanding performance and commitment during her tenure with the city of Turlock. And whereas the City Council, by this recognition, wishes to express its great appreciation to Deputy City Manager Sarah Eddy for meritorious service, loyalty, and dedication to the city of Turlock. Therefore, I, Amy Blueback, Regan Wilson. By virtue of the authority vested in me of the city of Turlock, on behalf of the entire city council and the residents we serve, do hereby commend Deputy City Manager Sarah Eddy for her many years of valuable service and express our sincere thanks on behalf of the city of Turlock. In witness whereof, Amy Blueback, Mayor of Turlock, having hereto set her hand and caused the seal of the city of Turlock to be affixed to this 28th day of January 2025.
Whew. Speech, come on, Sarah.
Okay, where's the little,
Where's the little what?
oh, okay.
It's working.
Well, the little fuzzy thing is gone.
Oh, fuzzy thing, yeah, it costs money.
Okay, I'm gonna get through this. No tears, I'm reading. So I crumpled it all up, sorry. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I would like to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude as I reflect on the honor of serving the city of Turlock for the past 36 years. Turlock has been more than a workplace. It has been a community that has profoundly influenced my life, presenting both challenges and opportunities for growth alongside an exceptional team. I'm especially grateful to former and current city councils for your trust and leadership, which have significantly improved the quality of life in Turlock. Together, we have accomplished remarkable things for our community, and I will forever cherish the memories of our collective successes. To my past and present colleagues, your professionalism and dedication have consistently inspired me. It has been a privilege to collaborate with such a devoted group. Your hard work and creativity have greatly impacted the lives of those we serve, and I take immense pride in what we have achieved together. My sincere appreciation goes out to each of you. Your understanding, service has not gone unnoticed, and I am confident that our city will continue to flourish with such a remarkable team in place. To the people of Turlock, thank you for the opportunity to serve you. Your unwavering support has been the driving force behind my passion and commitment throughout this career. As I begin this new chapter in my life, I will cherish the friendships I formed and the memories we've shared. Those that mentored me when I initially came to the city and taught me along the way have my sincere gratitude. I am genuinely excited to support you from the sidelines as you continue to make a meaningful impact in this wonderful community. Thank you for 36 incredible years. It has truly been my privilege.
Before we do a photo with the current council, I believe that Mr. Ireland wanted to say something.
Hi, Michael. Sarah. I didn't see you.
He is hiding.
Does this mean you're not going to call me in the middle of the night anymore?
Probably not.
Sarah, I don't know anybody who has their DNA in the city of Turlock as much as you do.
Right.
Everywhere, every department fingers, and I can just tell you, were you going to read Lynn's,
No, go ahead.
or do you want me to read it?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll read it. Well, let me start with Lynn. She couldn't be here, so she sends a note to Reagan and Amy and says, I'm out of town and cannot make tonight's council meeting as I will be on a plane at that time. I can't even log in live. But I wanted to let you both know that we certainly valued Sarah as our primary contact for so many years. Break. This is on health and benefits for city employees, and that's police and fire, health and benefits, of which Sarah has been deeply involved with for many, many years, and Lynn Bull heads our department, so there's the connection. Sorry about that, for clarification. Sarah has the unique ability to make the employee feel taken care of and valued. yet taking care of the city of Turlock at the same time. You're losing one of the best. I know that no one is irreplaceable, but just wanted you both to know that she represented the city of Turlock well over the years. She regrets not being here tonight. She would have said hi too. So I can just summarize this really quickly by saying Sarah has displayed over 37 years an incredible dedication to the employees and the municipality itself, all things, wherever she was at. We had an event in August, and the phone rings early in the morning Saturday, and for the next 6 days, throughout the weekend, and Sarah's quarterbacking all members involved to mitigate the situation that we had to do with IT and a potential breach to the city of Turlock. So that's just one of many. You've done a great job. You've done it well. You're always approachable, always responsive, and my team at Winton, Ireland is going to miss you dearly. And we just thank you. And it wouldn't have been right to not publicly acknowledge that on your retirement. Plus, I just wanted to see it for real. Are you really leaving? You know,
Really?
I think you've been threatening for a number of years. Yeah. So we love you
Thank you.
and
Very
wish you the
much.
best in retirement.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys want to come around and get a picture?
Yeah, I'm going out.
We're out?
You want me to go around?
Well, yeah.
Okay. Okay, Joseph.
You first.
Please hang around and look up.
Is there, we'll see in 360 days or something?
How long does we have to wait?
Or half of that? Director Sims, you're next.
Thanks, Regan. Hi. Can you get out of your way?
Good evening, Mayor, council members, city staff, and members of the public. At the July 23rd City Council meeting, council approved an item to allow Slate Communications to begin work on a City of Turlock communications plan. Slate Communications has been working on the plan and is currently at the stage of the plan for council member questions and answers. With us tonight from Slate Communications is their CEO, Ms. Kim Newcomer, and the Director of Communications and Strategy, Ms. Kristen Knoll. So I'll hand it off to them.
Great. First, I want to double check that you can hear me.
We can.
Excellent. And you can see me as well.
Yes.
Perfect. Oh, well, good evening. I am Kristen Knoll. Kim Newcomer was not available to join us this evening, but I am the Director of Strategic Communications and have had the pleasure of working on developing the communications plan for the city of Turlock. And I'm here this evening to spend a few minutes just asking a few questions to City Council. So we are at the stage of putting kind of the tools and tactics, the meat and bones of the plan together. And at this point, I have a handful of questions to ask council. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. But I will share my screen. I think you have been prompted with some of these questions prior to the meeting, but for everybody else's, I guess, background, I will also share here so anybody online can also see the questions as well. So this first question is really more of an introduction to Turlock. We have had the pleasure of meeting with so many stakeholders in the community, and I've heard some really great, one-line descriptions of how someone would describe Turlock if they've never been to the city. And I thought it would be an interesting exercise to hear from City Council. How do you describe the city to someone, a friend, a family member who's never been to Turlock before?
Oh, interaction here. Feel free.
I'll say I think it's buried somewhere in our housing element that we're a little big town and we've grown quite a lot, and we've really starting to mature into a place that is a great place to live and work and play, and we're continuing to grow.
Great.
You got something? Anything?
Yes, as far as describing Turlock, it's definitely the small town feel, but it's growing at the same time. And as a business owner here in town, I just see a lot of opportunity here and a lot of a great future for Turlock. So someone who's never been here, I would say there's a lot of good things coming here.
Excellent.
A former search ended up with the statement, the best of the earth and the best of each other. And since it is an agricultural area, it kind of makes it all, the whole statement makes Turlock to me.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I will just add, we've heard similar phrases and words from the stakeholders that we've met with. Really that small town feel has resonated, I think, across all of the folks we've talked to, and really rooted in kind of history as far as longtime residents who have called Turlock home for a really long time. So I think that's great.
Okay.
The next question I want to pose to the group is, what are your communication goals? We've been meeting with Anthony and Joseph, and we've met with members of staff, and this is your opportunity to kind of share from a council perspective, what does communication success look like for the city of Turlock and the city organization?
I'll take that one. So I don't want our citizens to have to ask what's going on at City Hall. What are you guys doing? And that's why you're here, so that we can be more transparent. I don't think any governmental entities are ever transparent enough, but we don't want the community to have to ask what we're doing. We want the information to be readily available. Somebody can hit a computer or a laptop or an iPad and pick it up and know what's going on within the walls of City Hall. That would be my goal.
Mm-hmm.
I'll piggyback
That's
onto
great.
that with that, I think we need to make sure that we're reaching our constituents in all the different ways that they get information, because I've personally experienced too many times where it's like, oh, there's something amiss, and who do you call and how do you find that? And even when I've been a council member, it's a little hard to figure out what department is that supposed to go to, right? So just keeping that, letting the city be the trusted source of information and making everything not just available, but really accessible.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Okay.
Excellent. Does somebody have another response? Or is that my feedback again?
We're waiting for you for the next one.
Next one, great. So what challenges do you as elected officials that are out in the community or the city organization face when it comes to communicating with constituents? What do you see as your biggest challenges?
I would say that our website is faulty, but we know that, and you know that, and so it's kind of like we're just reiterating it in front of everyone right now that we're building a new one, so that will help to bring all the communication to one sector to be able to display it where it needs to be, when it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think also we've made some good strides in, leveraging social media, but social media is a busy place and becoming more chaotic, and so that's not always we need to have other ways to talk to people.
I will deal with that as the old person in the room who doesn't do social media. Still like to see something in a newspaper or, a flyer that, I mean, there's still a few of us dinosaurs left.
Right. We need to reach all members of the community, whether they're online or prefer reading print communications. Got it. Excellent. So what communication tools or processes have been effective in Turlock? What have you seen work where a resident maybe has said, I read that in the paper, or I saw the flyer, or I saw it on social media? Do you have examples of where you think the city has been successful?
Well, as we just only started a couple years back, actually having social media presence, it's that's where most people get it. I rarely, if ever, use my social media. I don't even know how to use it, quite frankly, but I'm with you. But I think most people get it that way. Some people still like their newspaper, so it goes back to the question before, and I think we lost you.
I'm here. Can you see me?
Okay, there you are. Okay. Anybody
Yes.
else?
No. I think
Nope,
you
that's it.
summed it up.
What I actually have a follow-up question. How have in-person meetings, open houses, or small project meetings worked for you in the city? Has the turnout been relatively good, or do you think residents are typically kind of too busy and don't seek out those opportunities to meet one-on-one or in person as much?
I think, when we hold workshops, from what I've seen, it's the numbers are small often, and I think that gets back to the need for different means of meeting with people, because in person is not going to work for a lot of people. I mean, we have a lot of people here tonight in our council chambers, but that's a lot more than typical. So I think our meetings can show that in person doesn't always work.
Absolutely.
I think we probably hear from constituents more when they have a problem. And that usually is on one-on-one, asking for some help, some direction, that kind of thing. And I mean, I think that's still the easiest and most effective.
Mm-hmm. Great. So as my team and I work to complete the strategic communications plan, I wanted to also provide the opportunity to ask if you have any additional feedback for us as we continue to build out the plan. Is there anything you haven't told Anthony or Joseph that you'd like us to know as we work on the communications plan?
I would like to see it kind of become part of our sort of city culture to survey our residents more often and really have like a routine of that. And, kind of taking a little bit of a left turn, when it comes to communication, a lot of that is going to happen when resident calls and is interacting with one of our customer service, individuals. And so I would like it to also be part of the culture that, we're always going to follow up, and we're always going to, tell people the information, even if it's hard news, because, or not good news to deliver, that it's better to do that than have a communication void.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, I know we had limited time to chat. If there isn't anything else you'd like to share with me, I'll let you get on with the rest of your meeting, but I appreciate the time to ask a handful of questions. Do you have any questions for me?
Not at this moment. Thank you.
Great. You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. I guess you're the next guy? Or,
I'm the next guy.
all right, let's do it.
All right. Good evening again, Mayor, council members, city staff, and members of the public. At the August 27th City Council meetings, council approved an item to allow Cosmont companies to begin work on a City of Turlock Economic Development Strategic Plan update. Cosmont Companies has been working diligently on the Economic Development Strategic Plan update and is currently at the stage for council member questions and answers. So with us tonight from Cosmont, we have Mr. Ken Hira and Mr. Tom Jaworski to provide more information on the strategic plan update, as well as have questions for council members. And then Ken and Tom, I'll turn it over to you now.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So let me try to share my screen to go over a short presentation we have. Everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so as Anthony mentioned, Cosmont was retained by the city for an updated economic development strategic plan in order to provide a current assessment of Turlock's strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities for job growth and business development. Our approach to this plan involved a significant amount of research, as well as interviews, feedback from city staff, council members, community stakeholders. The objective of this presentation and meeting is to present some of the important findings to the community and to gain insights on opportunities and challenges from the current and new city council members. It's been 7 years since the EDP was produced, and we're going to update this to reflect current market conditions and current community goals, as well as deep down dive into the West Side Industrial Specific Plan, the downtown area, and a possible tournament sports complex project. Cosmont has identified, several significant community assets. They're regional draws, including downtown Turlock, which with boutique shops, fine dining, entertainment, 4th of July parade, farmers market, etc. It's maintained through a property-based improvement district. Another major asset for the community is the Stanislaus County Fairgrounds, 78 acres by the Regional Transit Center, where it attracts over almost 250,000 people during the summer, as well as a 2-day swap meet in January that attracts approximately 100,000 people. Cal State University Stanislaus, 100-acre campus with 10,000 students, 700 full-time faculty, Turlock Regional Sports Complex, and Padrezzi Sports Complex. Quick overview of our demographic and employment analysis. Turlock has a population of approximately 73,000 people, 24,000 households. This represents less than about a 2% growth over the past decade. So while there was tremendous growth in the city throughout the 80s, 90s, 2000s, following the financial crisis of 2008, the growth has slowed significantly. Average household income in the city is about $104,000, with Turlock residents generating almost $650 million in annual retail spending potential across all retail categories. Citywide retail sales growth has been very strong in the past decade, averaging 6% per year, excluding the impact of the new Amazon facility, which will add several $1 million in tax revenue. There's been strength in almost every category with the exception of gasoline and furniture sales, obviously reflecting increase in electric vehicles and minimal amount of new home development. Let's kind of skip on to the next. In terms of strength, weakness, opportunity, threat summary, we see significant strengths for the city include the Monte Vista Crossing, the major regional retail draw, dozens of strong retailers, Costco, Target, the auto dealers. You have a significant agricultural economy with 1,000 employees. Turlock Industrial Park, I think, has 8 million square feet of development, and you also have significant outdoor amenities, recreational venues. In terms of weaknesses or threats, the age of the buildings in downtown create the Americans with Disabilities Act and other building code issues that make redevelopment of those buildings or addition of residential somewhat problematic, very costly. Our analysis has indicated that the development fees that the city enacted following the 2008 financial crisis have slowed industrial and residential development as these fees can approach $400,000 to $1 million per acre, which is a significant burden for many developers to overcome. In terms of opportunities, there's significant land available along the 99 freeway for more retail, restaurants, and entertainment. We understand you actually have on your agenda tonight a development agreement for a Turlock Marketplace project. That's great news. We think downtown Turlock is a unique regional draw with its shops and dining. There's continues to be strong regional demand for single-family, multifamily housing that we feel is an economic development driver that can increase the tax base and improve the business environment in many variety of ways. The West Side Industrial Specific Plan area is excellent to help attract more commercial, industrial, and recreational opportunities. We recommend the use of public financing and value capture tools to facilitate development in that area. And we also wanted to note that we understand there's a new online permitting software that we believe will be a major benefit for business attraction and retention. To help the city understand, its ability to capture a fair share of regional growth, we looked at economic incentive policies and impact fees for Turlock and main competitor cities, Modesto and Merced. And while Merced and Modesto have many more development incentives that they promote, Turlock has had actually the greatest growth in retail within the county in the area. Turlock has almost 6 million square feet, which is 21% of the overall retail market in Stanislaus County. In the last 7 years, we've grown by over 330,000 square feet, way faster than any of the other cities in the region. Over this same time period, rents have been grown by about 25% among all the cities, with Turlock having the highest rent levels in the county. And over the 15-year period from the recession, vacancy rates have declined steadily, with Turlock having the lowest vacancy currently at less than 2.2%, while other cities are over 5%. Office development has major challenges in the area as well as statewide, as increased work from home by many company employees. There's been very modest office growth in the entire region, with majority of it occurring in Modesto, with Turlock growing just 4,000 square feet. Market rents have increased about 25% over that 7-year period, similar to the competitive cities, and the region has held a less than 5% vacancy rate, with Turlock at only 3.2. With respect to multifamily, despite the need for more housing across the state, there's been limited new multifamily apartment construction in the county in the last 7 years, only 660 units built, and only 336 units built in Turlock, at least according to our data sources. Average rents have shown a growth of 40 to 50% over that time period, while Turlock and Merced have the lowest average rents in the area as a result of having a large percentage of Class C projects and affordable housing compared to only 30% Class A, Class D projects. And Turlock has the lowest vacancy in the multifamily market in the region, indicating strong demand. We wanted to make a point about housing as an economic development driver. And I don't know, Ken, did you want to chime in about?
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't know if anybody can hear me.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, this is Ken Hero with Cosmont, President. We have found that housing, a lot of things have evolved underneath the roof of a home, as we used to just live and sleep there We started shopping from our homes. We started working from our homes, which are interesting phenomenons. So in our communication with the marketplace, with many of our city clients, we kind of are of the opinion and expressing housing as actually an economic development tool. We know how important retail is, and the good news for the city of Turlock is you have a very low vacancy and a significant amount of retail, as mentioned. But housing, at the end of the day, has a lot going on that generates economic development revenues as well as jobs. On the next slide, if we can scroll to that, it's just a depiction of how housing in our minds are economic drivers, growth drivers. Retail, frankly, is blending. It's not just a singular asset class in our minds, even though you have significant regional retail. The blending of retail with residential and even hospitality is a more sustainable project type. Teleworking is obviously reconfiguring office demand, and then industrial is also a major driver, and then it's tending to be critical to economies as e-commerce and fulfillment, and et cetera, are promulgating that type of space. So I don't know, Tom, if we want to get quickly here to a Q&A, I'm not sure what more we have because I want to get council feedback.
Yeah, no, that's right.
We're almost there. Great.
Okay, there's a couple more slides. One I wanted to talk about sports and economic development. One of the areas that you had requested us to examine was this potential for a sports tournament park. The city had hired Victus advisors to do some analysis on that. Potential for generating $1 million a year in tax revenues to the city. We've done research on other examples of facilities around similar suburban areas that we think are good examples for the city to examine, and we'll talk about that as part of our overall plan. We've also, we have some additional economic development tools that we're going to have in our plan that we can go into more depth. But as Ken was saying, the main purpose for this discussion is to get the council feedback on what opportunities do you see the city has that we should be examining more closely, and what challenges do you see that we can try to help address.
So just in terms of the question for the council and the desire for us to get feedback, like we've done with other stakeholders, you can think of this as opportunities and challenges or strengths and weaknesses. If we just divided the page in two, we would love to hear your feedback on sort of positives and negatives, if you will.
So, Ken and Tom, kind of a little rough to hear you, and I would suggest maybe you send each of the council members and I the questions, and maybe have a little bit more dialogue offline so that we can, in the interest of time, kind of understand where we're going. It's kind of hard to put this together as you're just kind of throwing this out. So, unless you have something you want to add. Sure, go ahead. Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, I would add to the list of our community strengths that we've been really heavily investing in our road infrastructure, which really makes us more, I think, appealing to more development. And I appreciate seeing, your perspective on housing is also economic development, because even though, that's kind of part of our infrastructure, it's infrastructure that we don't have, the city doesn't have as much of a role in. We're doing a little bit with promoting rehabs and ADUs. But through whatever mechanisms we have, like through our zoning, I'd really like to see the city, plan for more retail and residential kind of combination uses. And I'm pleased to see that you highlighted our downtown, because our community outreach from our housing development talks about there's some community support for developing more housing on the second stories there. We could potentially, use some of our CDBG funds to help property owners do that. But that leads me to kind of the challenges of we have limited funding, and with that, takes staff time and resources that, we also are a limited thing too. So I'd like to see our plan sort of incorporate some of that and give us a kind of a, playbook on how to make that move forward.
Excellent. Thank you. Again, we don't have detailed questions to ask. We were, normally when we have these, we kick off these strategy sessions, we meet with the council, in our very first, on our very first trip up to the city. But because of the timing of the election, it was decided to wait until the new council came on board before we had a discussion. So I appreciate maybe we've thrown this at you very quickly, and we're certainly not pressuring now. We're happy to follow up with online meetings. Obviously subject to the Brown Act, and making sure that we understand all of your concerns and what things you want us to focus on as part of this strategy update.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Ken. We'll be in touch.
Thank you,
Okay.
Director Sims.
Thanks very much.
All right, this is time set aside for public participation within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. There'll be 3 minutes allowed for you. There are 2 different indicators to watch for the 3 minutes, and I do have a few cards, so I'll start with Turlock Library.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Karina Mendoza, and I am the librarian at the Turlock Library. With January, it means we are back in session with our preschool story times on Thursdays at 10 and 11, and our Wiggle Worms for babies to toddlers on Fridays at 10 and 11 as well. I always say it's one of those things where it's a lot of fun, a lot of books, a lot of dancing, a lot of movement, but we also use that as a way to help parents teach their kids, because parents are the child's first teachers on how to prepare them for kindergarten. Because we want all the kids ready in this community to be ready for kindergarten, so that way they can start ready to read, ready to learn, and just ready to excel in this community. If you don't have child, that's okay. We have programs and services for you as well. We are in the middle of our winter reading challenge, so we have 2. One for adults, 18 and up, where for every book that you read, you just log it on the Beanstack app. If you do a little review, you get an extra little ticket, and those tickets you can put into virtual buckets to win real prizes. For kids, it's just an hour of reading, so every hour that they read, they can earn a virtual ticket. We don't expect kids to read for 1 hour at a time. That's asking way too much. So 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. Next thing you know, you have an hour. And then we also partnered again with AARP tax aid program. So starting Wednesday, February 5th, we will have volunteer tax professionals doing taxes from 12 to 3. It is walk-ins only, first come, first served. You do not have to be a senior in order to have access to the service. So it's completely free. There is a bit of a wait, but while you wait, you can check out a book. It's amazing. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Dr. DeGrazia.
Hi, I'm Jolinda Grazia from Westside Ministries, and I'm speaking on behalf of some of the children that I work with. For 41 years, Westside Ministries has worked with children whose parents are working at foster farms. And today, before I left, I was cooking for children of Javier Garcia Sr. He has worked at foster farms since he came here from La Concepcion de Jalisco. I don't know what he will do when the plant closes. I'm asking the city of Turlock to do everything within their power to help the people to find work. It is of great concern. It's also heartbreaking, for this city has been known as turkey producers for almost 100 years. I also am here to implore the council to consider
There's been a lot of talk around town to ask the council to make Turlock a non-sanctuary city, whatever that means. And I'm here to stand with our police chief and also our sheriff and their stance on ICE raids. I have worked with people who have a variety of sorry, I'm really tired. It's been a long week and it's only Tuesday. A variety of statuses over the years, and they are afraid. They're coming to me and they're asking if I will give them sanctuary. And as a minister and as someone who comes from a long line of ministers, and as someone who comes from a long line of ministers who have come through Europe, that is what we do and that's what I will do. So I'm just saying to you, don't make us do that, but if we have to, we will. Please take care of our people. This is a very complex issue. My time is running out. People are scared. From Ronald Reagan to Joe Biden, there's been an understanding of this complex issue, and there has been help given to us as farmers as we have tried to harvest our crops and feed the world with the shrinking workforce. So I'm asking you to help us as we help children, as we help people in the Central Valley. Thank you.
John Gebling.
Happy New Year. I missed last week and I had a good excuse. Usually it's because I'm in the hospital or recovering from a hospital, but last week I fell asleep. So I have a good excuse.
I think one of us did too.
Better that. Hey, I just want to make a few comments to start out the new year. This is not entirely about Turlock or anything else, but it's just about governments in general. To me, two of the most important things is when we're spending people's money, it's oversight and how effective we're spending the money. Because if you don't know, without oversight, you don't know how the money was spent. If it was spent wisely, then we don't know, and we can't make corrections. So we all have disagreements on how much should be spent, if money should be spent, but the one thing that just kills me about living in the state that I was born here and have lived almost my entire life in the state, that we've gotten away from the government, effectively, watching out for our money with things like homelessness, just a complete disaster, and mitigation of weather relations and what's going on in the state. It's just abysmal that we don't have any white papers on how the money's being spent. One thing that I think that is important for you guys to do is have timelines on projects. And I mean, you talked about the website. I think I remember it was last March or something that we did that. Was it last March? I have no idea when it's going to be, right? We should have an update. It's not done. We expect it to be done, whoever's in charge of it, and when it can be done. And it's like the pool, right? Is the pool, when's the pool going to be done? I have no idea. Do you know? But just have an update. Why is it being done? And what reason is it? Just so that we know. And that you talk about transparency, that's one of them. And then finally, about fire hazard notice. We have a new battery storage facility that has been in the Planning Commission. It's MDP 2021-09, okay? And that's been delayed for, until later this year that I know of. But, there was just a massive fire over in Moss Landing of a battery storage facility. And that's the second time in 2 years that same battery storage is. So whoever's district that's in, we need to know that project is going to be safe. So do look out for it. Thank you.
Okay, I have no other cards. Anyone else wishing to speak? Bob?
I'll second the previous speakers on the pool. I mean, just because it's cold and windy now, and you couldn't open it to the public, doesn't mean that it wouldn't be nice to finish it up as soon as possible, and maybe have 3 or 4 months to go through all new problems that happen with new building construction. Otherwise, you're gonna open this thing up on Memorial Day and then close it down 3 days later because something, the chlorinator's not working or whatever. Why not get the thing finished, fire it up, and start getting it ready? Second thing is, previous council meeting, I came up here and said, Southern California has had a horrible fire experience and lost everything. And it's my consideration that something like that could easily happen in Turlock as well as anywhere else. We have very high winds, usually in the month of May, and if it's a dry winter, which it looks like it is, there's no reason why that same thing couldn't happen here. And at that time I asked, does Turlock have any kind of a plan for a disaster like that? Does Stanislaus County have any kind of a plan for a disaster like that? Has there been any discussion with any of the cities in the county of what would happen in a situation like that? We all saw what happened on Corral Hollow Road last summer, where it almost burned down West Tracy. It can happen. And so my question again is, do we have any kind of plan? Have we had any discussion of any kind of plan? Has anybody ever broached the subject that maybe we ought to have some kind of a plan? If nothing else, look, the town's burning up. How are we going to evacuate? Is there any kind of plan? Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening, council staff and fellow people. This is Milt Treeweiler, and it's hard to figure out what's going on. In Stanislaus County, we've been given a Garden of Eden, and what are we doing? We're turning it into a desert. We have a free will, and what do many people do? They pursue the love of money. We have an intellect, and we have choices, and some people are choosing not to conserve the good resources we have. We must be conservationists for our children and descendants, since they cannot do that for themselves. We all understand that we must have clean air, water, and food, and yet we're not being good stewards. We're not conserving our resources. Please wake up for the sake of our children and descendants. We humans all think we're pretty smart. Each of us think we know what's true. However, no two of us agree on everything. You can fool the people, but you can't fool the laws of physics and mathematics. And that is just a fact. You cannot fool the laws of physics or mathematics. We are using up the resources that will be needed for our children and future generations so that they can survive. We, as our children's ancestors, must work together to preserve the best farmland in the world that we have here in Stanislaus County. We also should be aware that in the next 15 years, California will need to fallow 900,000 acres of farmland in the San Joaquin Valley. There's just not enough water underground to irrigate it. Our TID and MID ancestors had great foresight when they formed the first irrigation districts in the state in 1887. Today, we must save the best farmland in the world. It's worth the fight. I don't care where you go in the world, there's no prime farmland as good as there is right here in Stanislaus County. And this is because of the soil, the water, and the climate we have here in our county. Unfortunately, there are people who want to make our county a bedroom community for the Bay Area. That's terrible. By working together, our children and descendants can look back and thank us for stopping the sprawl of Stanislaus County cities. Our cities can build up and use their infill areas and also repurpose their blighted areas. We have plenty of places in the current sphere of influence where we can take care of all the people we need, up to 150,000 people. Today, we must save the best farmland in the world. So please, wake up for the sake of our children and our descendants, and let us save this farmland. And I'm not opposed to growth. Grow up and grow and repurpose our lands that we already have, and that will do the job. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we're going to close public comment. Move on to consent calendar. Are there any items to be seen separate? If not, motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Vixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moniz?
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes with a 5-0. Final reading, second final reading of an ordinance for a development agreement between City of Turlock and Turlock Marketplace on 2712 West Tuolumne Road. I will open it for the public if anyone wishing to speak on this before we vote.
I want to pull item 7J also.
I'm sorry, we already did that. We're on the final readings. Do you want to speak on the final reading? Okay, I'll close public comment, bring it back.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Vixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moniz?
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes 5-0. All right, public hearing 9A, and this is going to be Ms. Werner. Director Werner, we have a draft housing element. I'm not going to read all that.
What's the atmosphere?
Hey, is there an atmosphere?
It's an asteroid.
So I have a partner in crime tonight.
Oh, all right. We have cops.
Thank you, Mayor Bublak and council members and members of the public. And tonight we're bringing forward to you the draft housing element for the city of Turlock that will run from 2023 to 31. And the housing element is a key element of the general plan and required by the state to ensure that our communities provide enough affordable and adequate housing for statewide goals. The housing element is updated every 8 years. We're currently in our 6th cycle right now. The housing element will outline how the city will accommodate what's called the regional housing needs allocation. Those are numbers for houses that we have to make available or find capacity for within our city, and that's handed down from the state. Along with our consultant, Andrew Hill, with Dayat Bhatia, we began our update and began updating our housing element in May of 21. And I'm just going to turn it over to Andrew and let him kind of walk you through the housing element and the next steps.
Thank you, Adrian. Yes, my name is Andrew Hill. I'm with Dayat Bhatia. So the draft housing element was developed with extensive community input and released for public review on October 3rd of last year. Then on November 7th, we reviewed it with the Planning Commission, and the Commission recommended that the Council approve it for submittal to the California Department of Housing and Community Development. Tonight is not the end of the process, but it is an important milestone. And so the objectives of the meeting tonight are to provide an overview of the draft housing element, to hear comments from the council and the community, and if appropriate, to receive approval to submit it to the state to start the clock on the legally required 90-day review of the element. So I want to emphasize that the council is not being asked to adopt the housing element tonight, but rather to move it forward in the process. Under state law, the California Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD, must review the element and certify it as complete before the document can be finalized. After that HCD review process is completed, the draft element will come back to the council for formal consideration at adoption hearings. So the recommendation tonight is that the council approve it for submittal to HCD to start the clock on that 90-day review period. As of today, Turlock is one of only 2 jurisdictions in Stanislaus County that have not yet submitted the housing element. And so there is some urgency to submit it in order to avoid enforcement actions from the state. Let me start with a little bit of background on the housing element. It is, as Adrian said, it's one of 8 mandated elements of the general plan. It's essentially the city's plan for addressing local housing needs. Unlike other elements of the general plan, though, it must be reviewed and updated every 8 years to plan for the coming 8-year cycle. And as I mentioned, it's also subject to a host of statutory requirements, including that it be reviewed and certified as complete by HCD. A term that you hear a lot in combination with the housing element is RHNA. It stands for the Regional Housing Needs Allocation. It's essentially the number of units that the city must plan for over the current 8-year cycle. And so for this 2023 to 31 cycle, the city is required to plan for 5,802 new housing units. Those units are broken down by different income categories, as you can see here on the screen. So households making less than 80% of the countywide median income are considered lower income households, and households making more than 120% of the countywide area median income are considered above moderate. About 43% of Turlock's allocation is for above moderate, and about 38% is for lower income households. Essentially, the housing element has three required components. The first of these is an inventory of sites that are available for housing development. These are usually shown on a map and accompanied by a table. And the table shows the realistic projection for the number of units on each site. And then the second required component is a series of background analyses related to local housing needs, which is based on a review of census data, consideration of any constraints to housing development. So they could be environmental constraints, process constraints, regulatory constraints, or market-based constraints. And then finally, an assessment of fair housing issues. This means access to housing for disadvantaged groups like seniors or the disabled, female-headed households. And then finally, the third required component is a program of implementing actions that will facilitate build-out of the inventory and address those housing needs, constraints, and any fair housing issues. So the draft housing element is presented in 2 volumes. The second volume has all that background analysis. It's presented in a series of appendices that you can see here. And really the core components of the housing element are in volume 1. So chapter 3 has that sites inventory and the realistic capacity projections. And chapter 4 is the housing action plan, is that program of implementing actions. In my presentation tonight, in my overview, I'm really going to focus on those core components, starting with the sites inventory. And so the state law establishes certain requirements for the inventory and the sites included on it. It's important to note the city is not required to build all those 5,800 units. Rather, the requirement is that the zoning map needs to have adequate capacity to accommodate those units at all times over the period. Now, the state considers that high-density housing, 20 dwelling units per acre or more, is affordable to lower-income households. And so the way to demonstrate adequate capacity for lower-income households is by demonstrating you have adequate capacity, of adequate land zoned at least 20 dwelling units per acre. Additionally, state law establishes certain requirements for sites on the inventory that are identified to accommodate lower-income RHNA. They're listed up here. They need to be of adequate size, so not less than half an acre, not more than 10 acres. They need to be free of environmental constraints. They should be close to transit and services, and they should be served by infrastructure and utilities. The reason for these requirements is that the state would like cities to put forward the most shovel-ready sites for affordable housing in view of the financial feasibility challenges around that type of housing. Additionally, the sites inventory should take steps to affirmatively further fair access to housing for disadvantaged groups, and the projections for the number of units should be based on past performance in similar zoning districts. And so when we started to put together the inventory, one of the first things we did was to look at recently approved projects and projects that are currently under construction. The projects that are in that development pipeline can be counted towards RHNA. So currently there's about 14 projects in the city with a total capacity of 1,137 units. Those can all be counted towards RHNA, so we looked at those first. We also looked at vacant land in the city that currently is zoned for residential uses and projected a number of units there. We looked at their significant capacity in the Morgan Ranch Master Plan area, so we counted those units as well. And we looked at the capacity for housing in the downtown area, counted those as well. And finally, we looked at the production trends for accessory dwelling units, projected them forward over each of the 8 years. And when we totaled all that capacity up, currently the zoning map has capacity for about 4,250 new housing units, which is about a little over 70% of the way towards RENA. You'll see there is a deficit, particularly in the lower income category, almost 1,000 units. And so in order to bridge that gap, the housing element proposes the creation of a workforce housing overlay that would apply to underutilized commercial properties in 4 areas of the city. Under this overlay, property owners would continue to have the right to develop with commercial uses consistent with the base zoning, but the overlay would give them the option to also build multifamily housing on their properties if they want. The objective of the overlay would be to help the city demonstrate capacity for workforce housing to meet its RENA obligations and provide additional opportunities for housing for service workers, teachers, public servants, and other people who work in Turlock and make less than 80% of the countywide median income. These are the 4 areas where the overlay would apply, and the site, not all sites in these areas, but rather the sites identified. We did a community survey, which got over 1,500 responses from Turlock residents. All of these areas received strong support. On the order of 60% of respondents or more supported higher density housing in these areas. When you factor in the housing capacity of these sites in the workforce housing overlay, you can see here that the overlay would generate additional capacity for about 2,400 units. And when you add that on to the current capacity of the housing element, there would be sufficient capacity for the city to demonstrate, to meet its RENA obligations at all income levels with a buffer. And that buffer is important in case any of the sites on the housing element don't develop at the densities assumed in the housing element. There would still be sufficient capacity in the zoning map to accommodate RENA over the full 8-year period. This is a map of the location of the sites. As you can see, the lower and moderate income sites are generally concentrated near transit and services, which is consistent with guidance from the state. But there are also, as I mentioned, some additional requirements for the site's inventory. State law requires that the site's inventory expand housing opportunities for disadvantaged groups in high resource areas. In Turlock, these are shown in the dark blue and the lighter blue. They tend to be concentrated in the north and the east of the city. These are areas with good schools, with good access to parks, clean air, and relatively higher incomes. And so the state would like to see more opportunities for lower income households in those areas. Accessory dwelling units in established neighborhoods will provide those kind of opportunities, so that is a good step that the city has already taken. Additionally, the housing element proposes 2 other strategies to meet this requirement of state law. The first of them has to do with SB 9 housing. So Senate Bill 9 is a state law that enables homeowners to split their single-family property into 2 lots and develop up to two units on each of the newly created lots, if they choose. This could expand opportunities in established residential areas, and you can see here we've identified some candidate sites, particularly in the east of the city. Those new units would be smaller and therefore more affordable by virtue of that smaller size. And the second strategy to meet this requirement would involve the creation of a congregational overlay. So new state law already provides incentives to religious organizations to develop housing on their properties if they choose. In Turlock, there's at least 32 churches with some vacant land or surface parking that could potentially be redeveloped with housing if the churches are interested. And so the strategy here would be to create an overlay that permits the development of affordable multifamily housing on religious properties if the churches wish to pursue it. This is not a strategy that would be implemented on day one. it would involve doing outreach to understand, first of all, if the churches are interested in this, to hear their feedback, and to use that feedback to develop an overlay over the course of the 8-year implementation period. But it is a strategy that would meet the requirements of state law for affirmatively furthering fair housing. And this is a snapshot of some of those 32 sites, just to give you a flavor for the land that is potentially available if those churches would choose to pursue that option. And then the second core component, as I mentioned, is that housing action plan, which is the collection of implementing actions to facilitate build out of the housing element. The action plan is organized around 6 key goals. These are essentially the same goals that are in your current housing element. There's a slight consolidation of 2 goals that are both oriented around production, and goal number 5 has been reworded to clearly show where the requirements for affirmatively furthering fair housing are being addressed in the element. Overall, there are 43 implementing programs that would be implemented incrementally over the 8-year period. For each program, we've identified timing, the responsible city department, and sources of funding for it. Additionally, we've included this implementation timeline showing the sequence of when the programs would be implemented in view of available staff resources. So as I mentioned, the draft housing element was released for public review on October 3rd. At that time, notification was sent to all of the owners of workforce housing overlay sites. Several of those owners have actually contacted the city expressing interest in developing housing if the overlay were to move forward. And then, as I mentioned, on November 7th, the Planning Commission reviewed the draft element and recommended that the council approve submittal to HCD. And so let me close with just a look ahead to the next steps and timing. Again, the recommendation tonight is that the council approve submittal of the draft to HCD to start that clock on the legally required 90-day review period. During the review period, staff will meet with HCD to answer their questions and expedite the review. Also, during the 90-day review period, we would have a study session with the Planning Commission on the workforce housing overlay to receive feedback and with a review to refining it. And then following completion of the 90-day review period by the state, the draft housing element and the workforce housing overlay would come before Turlock decision makers. So first the Planning Commission and then the City Council for consideration at adoption hearings in May and June of this year. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions?
Yes, you said it somewhere earlier in your presentation, but I'm hoping you can kind of reiterate and expand a little bit, because when I think people hear state mandated process, you get a lot of groans. So can you clarify exactly what this is and what this is not in terms of our obligations and what we have to do?
Sure. So the requirement is not that the city build those 5,802 units, but rather that through the housing element process, the city demonstrate that the zoning map has the capacity to accommodate those new units, including units at all of the income levels. And as I mentioned, the state deems that higher density housing, so 20 dwelling units per acre or more, is deemed affordable to lower income. And so by demonstrating that there's an adequate amount of land zoned at 20 dwelling units per acre or higher, to meet that lower income RHNA requirement, then we can demonstrate capacity. So it's a process of really demonstrating that the zoning map has that capacity and that there's programs in place to address those constraints and local needs.
And you mentioned if we don't, there's enforcement. And of course, I don't think any of us want that to happen, but can you clarify for everyone what that looks like?
Yeah. So the housing element was actually due in December of 2023. So we're about a year late at this point. That means that the city at this stage cannot apply for grants from the state. So grants for road repair or grants for affordable housing until the housing element is certified. So And then ultimately, if the city or any city in the state doesn't submit a housing element and doesn't achieve certification, there could be enforcement actions. So that could involve fines, penalties of up to $10,000 a month. Or ultimately, there could be a lawsuit and the court could appoint somebody to develop a housing element for the city, which means a loss of local control. And so what we've tried to do with this housing element is demonstrate, provide a pathway for accommodating that RHNA, but in one that allows flexibility for landowners, right? So with the workforce housing overlay, there's no requirement that anyone build housing. They can still develop their properties consistent with the base commercial zoning, but it gives them the option to. And that's a way of demonstrating compliance while still allowing for property owners to choose what they want to do with their property.
Hi, Mr. Hill. Is Stanislaus County or any city in Stanislaus County meeting their RHNA obligations?
So there's 2 cities in the county that are certified.
Who?
Modesto, and I believe the other one is Houston, that recently just got certified.
Okay.
And that certification is good for 8 years?
Yes, correct.
Our case 7 or 6.5?
Yeah, 6.5 left.
Right. So do you know why our report wasn't filed when it was due back in 2023?
Well, there's a couple of things that have happened along the way. In June of 2023, we had a community survey ready. It was an online survey, though, and the council at that time preferred to do a paper survey. And so staff developed a list of 30,000 addresses in Turlock, including homeowners, and trying to balance it with renters as well. A paper survey was sent to all of those. It took several months to put that list together, and then we got a tremendous response, 1,500 responses, but they were all on paper, so it took quite a long time for staff to process those. So that really added to the timeline overall. But here we are, and if you can approve it, we would love to move the process forward.
Thank you.
So, I believe your company did the 2008 general plan,
Correct.
and we didn't achieve any of the numbers that we were alleged to do. What was the punitive portion of that?
So there's no punitive portion for the general plan for not meeting those projections. We did take a look at how Turlock did in its housing production over the last eight years in comparison to other communities in Stanislaus County, and actually Turlock did pretty well in compared to other jurisdictions. I have a slide that shows Turlock's progress towards its RHNA in comparison to other Stanislaus County. I can pull that up if you'd like to see it. Yeah, so maybe it's a little small, whoops, sorry, but you can see Turlock is second from the bottom there. Overall, Turlock achieved almost 40% of its RHNA allocation for the prior 8-year cycle. Only Houston and Oakdale did better. So no jurisdiction, as you can see, in Modesto, or in Stanislaus County came close to meeting their RHNA requirements. But Turlock was not at the bottom, was closer to the top.
Okay, so what's different now if growth doesn't happen, if we don't have water, if more water has to go south, then how is it that we're going to be held responsible to sustain the RHNA numbers, or will be in trouble?
Yeah, I think what I would say is that, and you can even see from these numbers, the RHNA numbers for this current cycle are much bigger than they were last cycle, and the last cycle wasn't met. And so, honestly speaking, I think it's going to be very difficult for any jurisdiction in the state to meet those RHNA numbers in terms of construction. But again, at this stage, with trying to get to housing element certification, I would really call it a compliance exercise. What we're trying to do through the housing element is demonstrate that the zoning map has that capacity to theoretically meet the RHNA, and that we've identified constraints to housing and local housing needs, and we're putting in place a plan of action to to address them. And I think that's the best that any city can do, showing a good faith effort to meet those requirements and try and address the local housing needs.
Other questions? All right, we'll open it to the public. Anyone wishing to speak regarding this topic? No? And for the sake of any questions that come from public comment, we'll answer at the end, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's very important that we actually do accomplish our goals with arena numbers, even though it's not necessarily practical, totally practical. But we have to look at the overall goals. And one thing we actually need, and we know we need, is we need affordable housing. And the way we're going to get that affordable housing is to pursue it. And the way we can accomplish that, of course, is with our multi-story buildings. And Turlock is very happy with 5-story buildings. And that's great. And we have one coming up in the planning too. It's not exactly an apartment, but it is a hotel. And a hotel could be apartments. You just have to put 2 rooms or 3 rooms together. So it's very feasible to do this. But I see more of a desire for things like sports complexes than for affordable housing. And I find that as being a problem, because we have a responsibility to our fellow citizens that they have an opportunity to be housed. I have two apartments right close to me, and the landlord is asking $1,700 for rent for 800 square foot apartments. He's had them up for rent for 8-9 months now. They're not renting. No one is going to pay that amount of money. But we need to get this affordable housing built in the form, again, of multi-story buildings. I just spoke about farmland. We've got to save the farmland. No one else is going to do it. And our children and descendants are the ones that are going to suffer. So we have this responsibility. We need to really get on this. We need to work on this. We need to do something, not just dream about it or talk about it and think about la-la land and sports complexes, which do not have much to do with affordable housing or for our lower income people. Let's look out for the lower income people and let's do the job correctly and work on it. I'm still waiting. I mean, there is a duplex or five houses right on my block that has been planned, and it's gone. It's can be done, but it's not being done. I look on West Main Street. We've had a house there that was built in the 1930s, and they're trying to renovate it, and they've halfway through, and it's been sitting there for 6 months. Why is the Turlock? Why is our city not making sure that they can accomplish what they need to do to get this place completed on West Main? So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
John? Or Bob?
I'm not sure what is affordable housing anymore, but if a landowner is charging $1,700 a month rent, there's a good chance that that's the amount he needs to get in order to cover his purchase costs and loan, property tax, and fire insurance. I can't even see if you had a 5-story building and you built 2-bedroom houses or 2-bedroom, 2-bath units in each one of those things. I can't see how a guy could sell it for less than $200,000 because the price of financing is too high. You can look up there on Monte Vista right now at an apartment complex that's been sitting idle for 6 months of the perfect building weather because I imagine they're having financing problems. And you've got construction costs that are horrible, and It seems like our president is bound and determined to have those increased by 25% this year. And you have land that farmers think's too valuable. I mean, and the cost to develop the land is too high. Not to mention fees. The planning fees in Turlock are ridiculous, and they have to be. And the fees to the schools are ridiculous, and they have to be, because of all the stuff that happened in 1978 when they passed Prop 13 and froze the fact that you can't raise property taxes on anybody. Quite frankly, I'm taking advantage of it. I shouldn't be, but I need to pay more. Anyways, you can plan for all this, and that all looks great and stuff, but the bottom line is, you're not going to be able to build more affordable housing until everybody steps back and reduces their cost by 15 or 20%, and I don't think that's possible. Thank you.
John?
I just had a couple of questions on that. Like the lot that I live on, as far as I know, it's still grandfathered in that I can build up to a 600 square foot house, but it's not a separate lot because it has an alley. Is that included in the plan that the RENA plan or anything like that? Then also, I know that there's lots of who have built on second stories or things like that to bring their parents in and whatever, but is that counted? I mean, to me, it's a housing unit, and they've added on to a house, so should that be counted? And then finally, I was curious that when we talk about multifamily and how many units per acre, well, if we have a assisted living unit, which in most cases is about 400 square foot, at least that's what I've found. If we have a big unit like that, does that count towards housing, or is that considered something separate? But to me, that's one of the most important things that we've got to do in this state and in this country is find for assisted living and type of thing for seniors. Thanks.
Anybody else?
I think you may be the person to answer this. So we shot ourselves in the foot, right? Because we're a year late, right? Yes, yes, that is yes. Okay, so we shot ourselves in the foot. We're a year late. Now we're not in a good position. What assurances do we have as citizens that we can get this done in a timely manner now, since growth and development in Turlock is near and dear to most residents' hearts? And if we have enough problems, we don't need to bring them on ourselves. So what assurance can we have that we won't do this again?
We answer all the questions at the end, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Afterwards, yeah.
I will wait.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we'll close the public comment. Mr. Hill, if you would come back up, we got a few questions there. You can, you want to start with the last one and we move backwards, whatever you want to do.
Sure, yeah. So the question about, what assurances do we have that this process can be completed in a timely manner? And so with Adrian and staff, we've been communicating with our reviewers at HCD. They have agreed to work with the city during the 90-day review period to expedite that process. So at 45 days, they'll give us a checklist. We'll have a meeting with them, answer any questions they might have, understand what comments they might have, and we'll work through any comments with them so that at the end of the 90 days, hopefully, we will have identified what revisions, if any, they want to see, so that when we bring it back to the commission and the council, we'll be very clear on, if the city adopts the element with these changes, then HCD can find it in compliance. I would also point out that, there's 10 cities and the county in Stanislaus, and only 2 of them have received certification yet. There's only 2 that haven't yet submitted to HCD. Turlock is one of those. But if we work with HCD closely during the 90-day period, I think we can catch up. The other questions?
Okay, so does assisted living count towards RENA numbers?
It does, and I think part of that question might also have been around junior accessory dwelling units. So if you convert the garage of your home into a livable unit, or you add on to your existing single-family home, that's called a junior accessory dwelling unit. And yes, those units count. We've looked at the production trend in Turlock, and we've projected that forward for 8 years, so we are accounting for those.
And then the ADUs as well?
Yes, and the ADUs count as well, absolutely.
That was part of the junior accessory.
Oh, got it.
Okay, other questions or comments?
I have some comments. I will sort of riff on the question that I ask of what this is, what this isn't. You know, you said very nicely that this is a compliance exercise, right? We have to go through the steps that the state says to make the numbers work. But it's also a chance for us to maintain a little bit of our local control, I think, and to work with our community. And we heard from 1,500 people, this is, you know, a plan that they can get on board with. And yeah, we have 70-something thousand people. 1,500 doesn't sound like, you know, as much as we'd want, but I would direct you to go back to look at our last housing element, and we kind of proudly tout in there that we got 3 people to come to a community meeting in that one. So we're making progress on that. And it's a shame that we couldn't have figured out a way to make the online, you know, portion happen, because kind of like we talked about with our communication survey, we got to go where the people are and how they're communicating. But, you know, I see this as we're looking at these workforce zones, looking at these congregational areas, and doing what we can as a city to cut a little bit of the red tape and tell a property owner that if, you know, our community thinks housing is important, if you want to develop your property like with housing, we're gonna work with you on that. And you know, what it's not, you know, I don't think it's, I've heard it characterized that this is, you know, the state putting its thumb on the scales and trying to, you know, make more affordable housing, you know, pushing it down people's throats. You know, looking at our RENA numbers, what, 38% are in the very low. The rest of that is in the moderate to above moderate houses. So, I mean, it really fits, I think, some of the market trends that we have here. And so I think this is a good plan. It's been a long time coming, and I would really like to see it move forward tonight. And if there's not the will to that, I would hope that we can discuss how to make something move forward.
I can't remember the last time we got an item from the housing department and we weren't told that we're up against time constraints, and if the council doesn't push this through, we're gonna get penalized. It's old. We need to do better.
So some of the things that bother me about any time when we do this is that we don't have a ladder truck. So let's build high. We're not prepared for that. We don't have the farmland. If we give that up, I mean, some cities have growth areas, some don't. So can you share RENA numbers with the county if we're going to keep some of ours? Because we have boundaries and we don't have a ladder truck. We don't have water resources, and we know we're going to get more of that taken away from us. So how does that come into effect where we're behind the ball and we know somebody's going to die as soon as they build this? We're not going to be able to respond appropriately. How does the state cover this? We're just supposed to get insurance and cover it?
Well, I guess what I would say is, in parallel with the housing element, we also need to, staggered parallel, I guess, we also do need to do an update to the safety element, and we need to prepare a CEQA document, which'll come before the council. In the course of preparing those documents, we will absolutely need to discuss with the fire department, you know, what this RENA plan does to their ability to provide services, and identify any mitigating actions as needed. So take it under advisement. We'll have those conversations with the public service providers and be better equipped to answer your question when we bring it back for adoption.
Even with the past general plan, the land that was to be built, those people don't want to sell it. They're holding on to it. So, I mean, we have many things to mitigate before we can even move forward with this, yet we're supposed to be, just put a carte blanche and then figure out how to like respond quickly behind that. I don't see cities doing that. So going back to that, does the county, if the full county hits RENA numbers, can they be shared?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And some, actually, so in Merced County, there's several jurisdictions that have banded together to create a multi-jurisdictional housing element. So that's in process. That is, I think maybe this time around, the ship has sailed because each of the 10 jurisdictions in San Jose County are proceeding on their own. But I think for the next time around, there is an opportunity to do that. Maybe not all 10, jurisdictions, but finding willing partners and working together might provide more flexibility. So I think that's a good potential strategy, and it has been used in Merced County.
Do what you do.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion. I'm going to second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Abram? Yes. Councilmember Vixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moniz?
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips?
No.
Mayor Bublak?
No. It passes 3-2. Thank you for that. We will move on to the next item, which is Mr. Fisher.
Good evening, Mayor Bublak, Council, members of the public. Tonight I have with me Carlos Guerrero. He's our Utility Division Manager. Tonight's action item that we wanted to discuss was the staff is seeking council approval of professional services contract to conduct a comprehensive water rate study to assess our current rates and propose future changes. The last water rate study occurred in 2018. The rate study sets the maximum rates for a period of 5 years. The last rate adjustment that we incurred was in January of 2022. A new study is necessary due to several pressing factors that are affecting our water system, such as increasing regulatory requirements in state groundwater sustainability regulations, declining groundwater supply and conjunctive use practices, aging infrastructure and metering systems, and a need for water main line replacements and capital improvements, improving our ability to coordinate with the roads program. A little bit of background, our water supply is blended, so it's surface water as well as groundwater. That's the primary conjunctive use method. We do this so that we can rely on our groundwater in times and periods of drought, and we can use the surface water, when it's in readily supply. We're all a little bit worried about what's coming down the pipeline as well. Additionally, in 2023, I believe it was May, we introduced chlorine to our system, which basically changed our system from the I guess the best way to put it is the grades. So there's a lot more work, a lot more regulatory requirements for a chlorinated and a conjunctive use system. So that changed quite a bit. And we did our, in the last rate study, they did their best to plan for that. And I think they did a very good job planning for it. Why we need this study is we want to evaluate the potential impacts that are on the rates are due to our growing challenges in our supply, treatment, and our infrastructure. We recently learned from our last sewer rate adjustment, that it is important to do these on a regular basis, and that's why we're bringing this here to you tonight. We intend to do the same with our municipal code. We'll adopt the rates by resolution, and we'll clean all that, all those items up in there so that they match the sewer rate, as well as put in our municipal code that we'll endeavor to do these studies every 5 years, similar to what we did with the sewer rate study. How we got here where we're at, we issued a request for proposal. And I believe that was done in September of 2024. 2 proposals received, one from NBS Government Finance Group and another one from Utility Accounting and Rate Specialties, LLC. Staff went through a committee process and they selected NBS to do the study for us. Our goals for the study ensure the fair rates for all customer classes, balancing fixed and usage-based charges, maintain sufficient reserves for operations, capital rehabilitation, and rate stabilization, and securing funding for any capital improvements that may be needed, including treatment and infrastructure costs. We want to align with Prop 218 legal requirements for cost of service principles and provide a flexible rate model, which is adaptable to changing conditions and customer data. Basis for the recommendation, we want to make sure that we ensure rate equity, maintain reserves, funding of critical infrastructure and water treatment and distribution systems, provide City Council with actionable data that assesses future operation, financial, and capital investment plans, address the financial impacts of a new treatment process, capital project funding options, and evolving regulations, which are changing almost every day. Continue with best practices in the recent sewer rate study, including regular rate reviews. Total cost of this project or this contract would be $132,915, funded by 420. In contract help services, I won't read you the account number. And we hope that you will approve the rate study, so we can address all of our pressing infrastructure needs and basically plan for the future. I think the big piece of this is to be proactive. We have, we're in a good position right now. These things are, based on a snapshot in time, and the last rate study took a pretty good snapshot. The fund's healthy. However, there's things that we want to do that we didn't really have the money to do, and I think it's really important that, that we consider these things and prioritize them. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Director Fisher, does this include like the pipes that are not large enough to put the pressure through that other southern cities have had problems with? Will this, if it were to increase, would that help?
Yes, it will. So there, I think there's 7 critical areas that's prioritized right now. They're all small length pipe diameters or small length pipe projects. With the introduction of surface water, the benefit of that is we have a beautiful terminal tank, which, we have plenty of water. We actually have a surplus of about 750,000 gallons for fire rating. There are a few areas that we can improve the flow. There's also some undersized mains that cost us a little bit more energy, but planning for the future, as growth comes out, they'll become undersized themselves. That includes all that.
Thank you. Question?
And it says 7 months from approval to when we'll, be finalizing all of this. With your experience with MBS before, do you feel like that's a reasonable timeline?
Yeah, I think we're working with a much better snapshot from the last study than we were with the sewer rate study. And with these things, I think it's important to make the right decisions. And when something comes up, is to dig and go after that data. And a lot of times that does take a little bit of extra time. But I don't foresee any lengthy delays in this.
So before the end of the year, we'll have some clarity
That's my
for
plan.
the residents?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Bring it to you in fall of this year.
No other questions? Open it to the public. I'm sorry, Kevin, did you have something? Okay. Go ahead.
Well, water again is one of those 3 things we need to survive. We need clean air, we need clean water, and we need food. So food is our farmland. Water is the water we have underground and coming from the surface treatment plant. And that's what we're talking about tonight. And I mentioned before or previously the laws of physics. And I know there are people right here in this room and probably out listening to that don't really want to follow or believe in the laws of physics. It was proven in about 2006 to 2010 that we definitely know that our planet is warming, and we definitely know it's caused by our production of CO2 or carbon dioxide that we're putting into the atmosphere. And basically that is the law of physics. We're not going to change it. We're either going to stop putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, or we're going to continue to heat the planet. And I'm going to bring a chart and do a talk on that at one of these nights where I'll show you what has happened and what's happening. It's just getting hotter and hotter and hotter on our planet. It's not going to change. It's not going to stop. And we've got to conserve the water. So to conserve water, we need to have incentives. So I would like to see a tiered rate in this. We had talked about a tiered rate. It's completely equitable, and it can be done. And it was actually done in one of our water studies, and I could share some of that information with you as far as the tiered rate. It gives you the exact same figures. It's all legally done, just like the sewer is done. And then another question, I do have a question about 40,000 gallons or more, there's a penalty. If we're going to have a penalty, we need to enforce that penalty. I don't really believe it's been enforced in the past, or at least it was haphazard. I believe in giving people warnings, but I think we really need to enforce that penalty so they know that water is something we have to have or we're not going to survive. So I hope this goes smoothly and we get a good job. Thank you.
Anybody else? John?
Quickly, the only thing I had from the last water rate study is that you should base rates on the total amount of water used throughout the year, not just, per month or anything else like that. I mean, I might use 500 or 600 gallons during January, but I might use 10,000 gallons during February, but I'm very conservative. And I think a total blended rate throughout the year would be something to look into. Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, we will close the public comment, bring it back. So Director Fisher, in regard to the $40,000 or 40,000 gallons plus,
We are currently levying a excessive use charge of $25. And so our rates, so right now they're tiered. But there's been some new legislation. We'll do it within what we can do with the 218 process, but we have to follow the Constitution. I know that there's some state laws that allow you to do that, but the feedback I'm getting is the Constitution of California trumps all. But we'll definitely look at that because that does actually help us when we do that. The total amount of water used, so the way that, that we currently charge is we have an administrative charge, capacity charges for the pipes and the structures, and then the commodity value of water, which currently is $1.76 per 1,000 gallons. We're gonna look at that, but primarily the use you pay for what you use, and that is usually the smallest portion of the bill, depending on especially if you conserve water, you can save a lot of money that way.
and then the total amount per year, is that?
I'm gonna need some clarification on that because we bill monthly the usage,
Right.
so
That'd be hard to,
I
okay.
just didn't draw the line to it, and I apologize.
No problem. I do know that Milt's correct, that we were kind of told until we got the SRWA, that tiered wasn't something we should look at. So this is good timing now, if possible. I do know, looking at 218 previously, I've asked a million times about senior rate and and I know that that's hard to get.
Yeah, and we'll explore all of, because, we're going to look at our entire customer base and understand what our usage patterns are. Similar to what we did with, the sewer rate study, we said, okay, what winter water usage, what does everyone use? And it turned out that most people during winter used about the same within, 80% of them were in the first, in the mean, and then there were some standard deviations. Now, water is not the same in summer months, so that's something we really need to look at.
Questions, comments? Right.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Abram? Yes. Councilmember Bixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moniz?
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes 5-0. Thank you, Director. All right, Lieutenant Hall, you're up. People drive poorly. We need to do something about it. Have I done it for you?
Please.
Is that about it?
You're about right.
Okay. In summary, thank you.
So,
Done.
nope.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. Tonight on the agenda as an action item is the acceptance of allocation of funds from the California Office of Traffic Safety for the Selective Traffic Enforcement Program, known to us as STEP. For about the last 10 years, that's about as far back as I can gather, the Turlock Police Department has applied for and been awarded this same grant. This partnership through OTS helps the police department conduct additional directed enforcement focusing on hazardous driving habits of motorists to reduce injury collisions, DUI injury collisions, vehicle versus pedestrian collisions, and vehicle versus bicyclist collisions. This past year, the department applied for this grant, was successfully awarded $80,000 for the 2025 fiscal year. Broken down, that grant will pay for 23 DUI saturations, 2 DUI checkpoints, and 25 other enforcement details to include pedestrian bicycle enforcement, distracted driving, and general enforcement. All of these enforcement details equate to an additional don't check my math, 288 working hours dedicating to making our streets safe to travel on. Additionally, the grant allows for funds to be spent on DUI checkpoint supplies, radar units, and kind of an update to our DUI trailer. This grant does not change or redirect anything that the traffic safety unit's mission is. This just simply enhances their effectiveness to create a safe city to travel in or through. The traffic safety unit utilizes a three-pronged approach to enhancing roadway safety. That approach is working with our engineering department through education and through enforcement. All three being equally important. I bring this up just to make a point that the department's traffic safety unit does not simply look at traffic issues in our city and just having one solution to it, that being enforcement. We try to explore everything that we have available to us. From the education standpoint, we regularly deploy our message board trailers throughout the city and post on our social media accounts with educational messages to encourage safe driving habits. So, if there are any questions from council or the public, I would be happy to answer them now.
Questions? Okay, we'll open it to public. Anyone wishing to speak? Yes?
Yes, traffic safety is extremely important, and there are ways to make sure that we have people driving correctly in the city. And some of the cities are now going into that. As a matter of fact, even Modesto already has it. They've got cameras. We're going to be putting in, I wanted to talk about a previous thing that was on the agenda. I missed that opportunity. But putting these cameras at the intersections is a great idea because it has many uses. It not only has license plate reading uses, but it also has, if someone runs a red light, you've got a picture right there of them running a red light. If someone is speeding, you've got their speed as they go through this intersection. So with all these cameras, we can really get a lot of good enforcement by using our camera systems that we're going to be putting in, that we already have, the 6 we already have, plus the 13 new that we're going to have. That's definitely going to be a deterrent of speeding and of running red lights. And, you know, you don't even, I know what they're doing. You probably heard what's happening in the Bay Area. They're putting in the cameras. They're actually going to have a third-party company that monitors it. You're going to get a speeding ticket, and it's going to be on the car. It's not going to be on the person. They're going to give the speeding ticket to the car because they don't know who drives it. If you have the police officer stop the car, then you know. But, I mean, stop the car, you've got the person there so you can see who the person is. But then you just get this fine. It comes in the mail. You pay the mail. Obviously, these are incentives for safe driving. So that's what we want to see, are these incentives for safe driving so we're not having accidents. And, I mean, my intersection there at West Main and North Soderquist has quite a few accidents. Of course, the speed is too high on my street, but that's the way it is right now. Hopefully that will change. Comparing it to other streets in the city, it's 35, and I've seen many streets, even on countryside, where the speed limit is 30, and I'm in front of a school with a fence and a fence in the center of the street, and my speed limit is 35. It doesn't make any sense at all. But that's immaterial. We want safe driving in Turlock. Let's do what we can to get it, and this will help too. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I must be especially grumpy tonight. I think if you use cameras to get control some of the speeds, that's great, but I think nothing is as effective as when you get lit up with those red lights and pulled over and everybody's driving by watching you get a ticket for.
So you like the grants then? They're gonna be pushing the black and
Well,
white.
I'm just
pulling
saying,
over.
I know whatever you can use the grant money for, but I hope some of it is maybe for getting some officer to get by Gear Road at about 2 a.m. when those guys are all just running the entire street, red light. That's my personal thing. I want to talk more about the sideshows and stuff. I mean, obviously, it's a danger and you have to do something about it. However, 20 years ago, you might have even been street racing a little bit or knew of it. This stuff happens with young kids.
Don't respond to that, Lieutenant.
It just happens. And when you talk about thinking out of the box, has anybody thought about going out to Crow's Landing and seeing if they can rent those empty airfields and give the kids some place to have something like that? I mean, they used to have.
It was considered like 15 years ago.
For that, you know, we used to have Vernalis drag strip, which did, it was wonderful. But now the kids are gonna do it. The question is, can you direct it someplace where it can be controlled a little bit? Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna close public comment, bring it back. What is your will?
I will make a motion to approve, but I want to say, Lieutenant, can you clarify, you said there's DUI checkpoints, but there's also specific enforcement actions and working with other jurisdictions. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So the grant allows for us to have a certain amount. Right now it's 2 DUI checkpoints. I believe there's 23 DUI saturation patrols. That is just 1 hour working from about 8 p.m. till 2 a.m. And their sole mission is to go out, find impaired drivers. That's their goal for the night. Regarding some of the other ones that I did not mention, we have, I put my sticky on the wrong page. I got it somewhere here. I know I forgot that. But I did.
He's got a cheat sheet for you right there.
Yeah, right where I left it. So what that's gonna include is general traffic enforcement, so that's where that red light, those red light violators are gonna come into play. That's where their focus is gonna be. It's not gonna be directed at one specific thing, one specific dangerous driving habit, if you will. So stop signs, red light violations, that's what that is gonna focus on. Distracted driving, people on their cell phones, not using a hands-free device. We have we have 3 motorcycle safety operations. That's for just anything, all the same laws, rules that apply to vehicles. We're just looking at the motorcyclists that are doing the same thing. That's all that is, to help reduce injury collisions with motorcyclists. We have pedestrian and bicycle enforcement. That's, again, directed enforcement, going out and focusing on, it could be drivers violating the right-of-way of pedestrians, but it could also be pedestrians suddenly walking out into the street, jaywalking as it used to be termed, doing some type of hazard that a prudent person wouldn't do. So that's where that enforcement comes in. We do have a collaborative traffic section where we have 4 of those operations. That allows the Turlock Police Department to, if we were to have a date that they come up with to focus on something, whether that be red lights, speed in our city, we can pay that agency through this grant. The last one is street racing and sideshow enforcement operations. There are 2. So this grant, instead of just coming out of our general overtime line, this grant is gonna pay for some of those operations. So if we know of something coming up, or we just wanna be out and about on a particular evening where that's likely to happen, this grant pays for officers to come out and focus just solely on street racing sideshow aspect of what's going on.
All right, thank you for that.
And thank you. When we talked earlier today, I asked him to like go through the math of like how much extra capacity does this do? And I figured that what we talked about is like 20% extra capacity compared to what we normally do. I won't hold you to that, but it's more.
It's
so
very close. When looking at how many officers that we have in the traffic unit and what that adds, it's about 20. I think it's close to 20%. Yes.
So for the public, it greatly expands what we can do. So thank you for your commitment to continuing to get this. I move to approve, yes, and more.
Just a question. Is this your first time presenting to the council, Lieutenant?
Unfortunately, no.
I haven't seen you.
I should have done better. I'm sorry.
No, you did great.
Oh, thank you.
You did great. I was going to tell you, come back and present anytime because you knocked it out of the park and I've never seen you present before. You did a great job. I'll second your motion. Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Pixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moniz?
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes 5-0. Thank you for that. Good to let the public know what's going on out on the streets, so slow down and pay attention. Okay, city manager report and updates. I believe that, Mr. Wilson.
Only to note that we had a call today regarding
Foster Farms?
Foster Farms. Sorry, thank you.
That's all right.
And we talked with the county's Employment and Development Department. I think they call it the Workforce Development Department these days. And they're gearing up and all that in order to be able to help address the needs of 549 people that are being laid off. We at the city, we're going to look at all our vacant jobs as they come up and make sure that we're letting the county's folks know that we have these kinds of availabilities. We've reached out to some of the other large employers in the area and talked about doing a job fair, and so we're doing that as well.
Thank you for that. Okay, council member comments, announcements, or in future consideration, council member Abram.
I just have one. I wanted to extend my thanks from my district to Municipal Services Maintenance Department. There's a long list of things I'd been compiling for things that need work, and Director Fisher and his team were already on so many of them, and so thank you for helping out wherever you can.
Okay, I have a lot to say, sorry. Chief.
She's replacing Pam, just understand.
No. Award ceremony last week, fantastic. And Ian Rodriguez is moving on, and that deeply saddens me because that guy has done so much good things and hard work in my district. I'm proud of him, I'm glad for him, but I'm depressed at the same time. And then I have to say, you guys, do you know how awesome the Turlock Police Explorers are?
Oh,
Okay.
you were one. Is that what you're
I was
trying to
one.
get at?
But that was a long time ago. Seriously, I see other cities' explorers week in and week out at my job every week. But I'm telling you, we knock it out of the park. We are sharp. We are tied. We are Class A looking outstanding. I am proud of our youngsters that are coming up through our ranks. And I'm proud of all of the awards that you guys handed out last week. So thank you for that. I received a communication from a constituent, and this has to go out because credit has to go where credit is due, folks. This is actually Councilmember Phillips's constituent. It was sent to me in Spanish, and I think that's maybe why I got it. I don't know. So I'm going to put it in English for you all. He tells me where he lives. It's Councilmember Phillips's district. We had a problem with our street and our curb, and I emailed the city streets department. Within 5 minutes, I got a reply. Within 20 minutes, I received a second reply from the streets supervisor named Art. I did some homework. We're talking about Art Padilla. And then 15 minutes later, Art Padilla was knocking on my door and ringing my doorbell. A little while after that, city trucks showed up. And by 8 a.m. the next day, all of the work was done. And my wife and I no longer have to worry about our issues. The city did beautiful work. I'm very impressed with the interests and the professionalism of the workers involved in this job request. We're very appreciative and very grateful. Thank you. And to that constituent, Mr. Tamez, thank you so much for taking the time to send in the good stuff, because lots of people show up to complain all the time, but it's not all the time that we get the good stuff. So Art Padilla and his team, great job. Thank you for all that you do out there. The last thing I have is on Foster Farms, my 519 folks. There's a lot going on. This is very devastating to District 2, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And I've been talking to my leaders in my district about it since it happened and came out last week. I spoke to the folks at Foster Farms again yesterday and today. I did confirm that they are holding true to the statements that were put out in their press release, and that is they are committed to relocating the Turlock folks, as many as they can, to Winton and Livingston operations. I also learned that the group Tyson that bought it is relocating it to Livingston. That's only 8 or 9 minutes down Highway 99, and I know from Lander and 99 from my district, it's a hop, skip, and a jump to get to Livingston. I appreciate the comments and the emails, but I want to keep this very real for District 2 because it is real and devastating for District 2. I think it's disingenuous for folks to get up and say that we're going to retrain these people for different jobs, because if you know who these folks are, you know they don't read or write. You know that their primary language is Spanish. It's Espanol. It's not English. And we're kidding ourselves if we think we're going to retrain them. So I'm working diligently with some other poultry manufacturers and trying to get a new meat packer to take over this site, because that's the job that these 519 people know how to do. And I'm going to tell you, they do it well, and they work harder than most folks do. They're very hardworking people. So we are very dialed into what's going on to Foster Farms. We're paying attention, and we're going to do everything we can to help our 519.
I do have one thing to say. The point in time homeless census is coming up on Thursday, January 30th. I signed up to volunteer in mid-December. It's my first time doing this. I kind of wanted to put myself in the position and just kind of see the realization of what is going on out there. So on the next council meeting, I'll have an update on that for you guys.
Good job. Okay, so Councilmember Phillips and I went to Senior Center on Wednesday, played a little, I think we made some money playing some pool, right? No, I'm just kidding. But they've been asking since last, like around Thanksgiving to add Thursday food to it. So I'm hoping that we can get staff to look at that. I mean, if there's something we can do to give money or whatever, they can only have up to 55 people. They're usually in the 47 to 49 food a day. So, I mean, there's a need, and I think we should meet it. John Gebeline said something about doing oversight and timelines. So I can't help but just want to announce one more time that we were only 1% change order on an entire SRWA. So that kind of something we should just keep telling people, because that is telling people what's going on. It was an oversight, and we made sure we were in check, and it was public's money, wasn't wasted. Disaster plan is through the county. They meet 4 times a year, so you can call the Board of Supervisors and ask if you want to sit in it. They just had one recently. I believe the fire chief was there. And we talk about it all the time. Our city has some too. We usually don't share what our blueprints are when we're trying to make sure what we're going to do, because if there's a critical incident, it can be moved. We also don't need people to have a way to harm us. So if you want more, you can probably go to the Board of Supervisors, and then for that, we have closed session.
Yes, we have 14A conference with labor negotiator, California Government Code 54957.6A, agency designated representative, city manager Regan Wilson, employer organization Turlock Firefighter Association Local 2434, employee organization Turlock Management Association Public Safety.
All right, we will report out should there be anything. Good night. There was nothing to report out. Good night. Adjourn.